$900 billion. That is how much Americans have currently borrowed to invest in the stock market. Not saved. Borrowed. The last time that number looked like this, a mechanic from Detroit put a rope around his neck in his garage because he lost everything after following advice from a man the newspapers called a hero. That man had a name: Charles Mitchell. Understanding what he did and why everyone loved him for doing it is the most important financial education you will never get in school. Because the system he built did not die in 1929. It got a software update. And it is running on your phone right now. Let me take you back. Not to the crash, to the moment before the crash, because that is the moment nobody talks about. That is the moment that actually matters. America is feeling something it has never felt before. Real widespread prosperity, not just for the wealthy, for ordinary people, factory workers buying cars, secretaries furnishing apartments, young couples dreaming about houses. For the first time in history, the gap between having nothing and having something felt crossable. Charles Mitchell understood that feeling better than anyone alive. He was not born wealthy. He was not born connected. He was a farmer's son from Massachusetts who clawed his way to the top of the largest bank in America through one single skill. He understood what ordinary people wanted to believe about themselves: that they were one good decision away from a completely different life. Mitchell decided to hand them that decision. Before Mitchell, less than 1% of Americans owned stocks. The market was a private club, rich families only. Mitchell looked at that closed door and called it a moral failure. Every American should be a capitalist, he said. Why should wealth belong only to the wealthy? And here is the thing that makes this story so dangerous. He meant it. This was not a con man running a scheme. This was a true believer building a cathedral. He placed trained salespeople in 69 bank branches across the country. He did not call them salespeople. He called them financial advisors. Sound familiar? These were not people who understood markets. These were people who understood humans. They were trained specifically to find the thing you were most afraid of and hand you the solution in the form of a stock certificate. Mr. Johnson, you do not want to work for someone else your whole life, do you? This is your chance. And the advertising reached places finance had never reached before. Newspapers in small towns in Ohio, radio broadcasts in Kansas, magazines in waiting rooms across America. Get rich investing, just $15 a month. Your children will be proud of you. Now stop there, because this is the first moment in this story where I need you to feel something rather than just hear something. Think about who was reading those ads. A teacher who had spent 20 years grading papers for a salary that never quite covered everything. A farmer watching drought eat into his margins year after year. A mechanic who was good at his job but knew his job had a ceiling. These were not greedy people. These were tired people. People who had done everything right and were still standing in the same place. And Mitchell was handing them a door. But the door had a trap built into its foundation. And that trap had a name. Margin trading. Here is how it worked. You do not need money to buy stocks. You only need 10%. The bank lends you the rest. Put in $100. Control $1,000 of stock. If the price rises 20%, you double your money. The salesperson demonstrated this with the calm confidence of someone showing you how a seatbelt works. Look what Mr. Brown did. $50 of his own money. $500 of Radio Corporation stock. 6 months later, it was up 300%. Your savings account would have made you $15. Here is what nobody in that branch told Mr. Brown. If the price falls 10%, you lose everything. Not your profit. Everything. And if the price keeps falling, you owe the bank money you do not have. That part was not in the poster. That part was not in the radio ad. That part was never explained. By 1929, 10 million Americans were inside the machine. The teacher mortgaged her parents' house. The farmer sold his cattle. The mechanic invested 6 years of savings. And Mitchell was on the cover of magazines. Sunshine Charlie, America's most beloved banker, the man who finally opened the door. Now hold that image. Sunshine Charlie smiling on a magazine cover. 10 million ordinary Americans holding stock certificates bought with borrowed money. And look at your phone. Right now, 50 million Americans are trading stocks through apps. Margin loans have hit $900 billion. And the apps are saying this. Zero commissions. Invest your spare change. Trade like a professional. Every American deserves access to wealth. The language is identical. The mathematics is identical. The only thing that changed is the interface. Back to 1929. By spring of that year, the numbers had started screaming. Stock prices had completely detached from the actual value of the companies behind them. The people who actually understood the numbers started getting very quiet. And when people like that go quiet, it means they are not warning you. It means they are already moving their money. The market started falling, billions gone in days, panic spreading. And then Mitchell did the thing that turned a correction into a catastrophe. He walked to a microphone and told people not to worry. National City Bank will provide the market with all the liquidity it needs. We will not allow an unnecessary crisis. Sunshine. Charlie had spoken. The market stopped falling, then rose, then exploded upward. 3 million more Americans poured in. And here is the second moment I need you to feel. Those 3 million people were not stupid, they were rational. A man with access to more financial information than anyone in the country had just told them publicly the market was safe. Why would they not believe him? October 24th, 1929. The largest investment funds in New York receive information that interest rates are about to rise. They do not issue a warning, they do not call Mitchell, they begin selling everything. Massive coordinated blocks. Hundreds of thousands of shares simultaneously. The market starts slipping, then sliding, then falling off a cliff. 13 million shares sold in a single day. 5 times normal volume. The telephone network collapses. Brokers cannot process orders. And then the margin calls arrive. This is the moment the machine reveals its true design. When prices fall, margin investors must immediately repay what they borrowed. They have no cash. So they sell stock, which crashes prices further, which triggers more margin calls, which forces more selling. The system Mitchell built to give ordinary people wealth is now stripping it from them at mechanical speed. And nobody can stop it. Nobody. October 29th, 1929. Black Tuesday. $14 billion destroyed in a single afternoon. More than America spent fighting the entire First World War. Edward Hopkins was a mechanic from Detroit. He had invested $5,000, 6 years of savings, every single dollar. By November, it was worth $200. The bank wanted $3,000 more immediately. Edward Hopkins hanged himself in his garage. His wife found him. His 2 children were in the next room. Mary Cayfield was a teacher from Ohio. She had mortgaged her parents' house, the house her father built with his own hands, the house she grew up in. After the crash, the bank took it. 3 generations on the street in November with nowhere to go. These are not statistics. These are the people who believed Sunshine Charlie. These are the people who did exactly what they were told to do. And this is what happened to them. 25 million jobs gone. 1 in every 4 American workers. 5,000 banks closed permanently, taking the life savings of millions of families with them. 2 million Americans homeless. Suicides were up 30%. Breadlines in the richest country on earth. 10 years. A full decade of an entire generation paying for one man's beautiful idea. When Mitchell was finally called before Congress, Senator Carter Glass asked him one question. Do you consider yourself responsible for the ruin of millions of American families? Mitchell looked at him and said this without hesitation. I wanted to give people the opportunity to get rich. No one forced them to buy stocks. He was tried for tax evasion, forced out in disgrace. He died in 1955 at 78 years old. He never once said he was wrong. And here is the part of this story I cannot stop thinking about. He probably was not wrong in his own mind. He genuinely believed he was helping. He genuinely believed ordinary people deserved access to wealth. He genuinely believed the door he opened was a gift. And that is the most dangerous kind of person in finance. Not the ones who know they are taking from you, the ones who are absolutely convinced they are giving to you. Now look at your phone one last time. The people who built those apps genuinely believe they are helping you. They believe in democratizing finance. They believe every American deserves a seat at the table. They are not lying. They are true believers, just like Mitchell. And the mathematics does not care about intentions. The margin call does not care that the app had a friendly interface. When the machine runs in reverse, it runs the same way it ran in 1929. Mechanically, completely, without mercy. The average American today owes more than they earn in a full year. Margin. Debt is at 1929 levels. 50 million people are one bad week away from a margin call on money they borrowed to chase something an algorithm showed them on a screen. And the people who built that algorithm profit, whether the price goes up or down. That is the thing Mitchell never told anyone either. The bank made money when you bought. The bank made money when you sold. The bank made money when you defaulted. The only person in that equation who needed the price to go up was you. So before you tap invest, before you borrow to buy something because the chart looked promising, before you trust that the company profiting from your trades is also the company that will protect you when it falls. Remember Edward Hopkins. Remember Mary Kay Field. Remember that they were not reckless, they were hopeful. And hope without understanding. The mathematics is not an investment strategy. It is a donation to people who will never say thank you and will never say sorry.